Bellator 286 Pitbull versus Borics full card prediction, and we're going to look at every single main card fight, every single prelim fight, give you my breakdown, what I think is going to happen, my thoughts, and who I think is going to win those fights. If you're new to the channel, go down and like this video, comment your predictions for this entire card down below in the comment section, hit that subscribe button. And with all that being said, let's get into Pitbull and Borics in the main event and so many other great fights on this Bellator 286 card. Let's start from the bottom and work our way up. Number 1, we have Weber Almeida and Ryan Liley in the featherweight division. Ryan Liley, not doing too good in his MMA career, going 11-8 as a professional MMA fighter. On his last 5 fights as a MMA fighter, has lost 4 out of those 5 fights, getting TKO'd in 2 of those fights. But he has good pressure, good volume. All of his wins, except a few, are by knockout. He has 5 knockout wins, 5 submission wins, and 1 decision win. So this fight is honestly a lot closer than a lot of you guys are probably thinking it is going to be. A lot of you are going to say Weber Almeida all day, every day, is going to go out there, keep his height and reach at the outside, use his karate background to just kind of pick apart Ryan Liley, and possibly even counter him as he's coming in and knock him out in round 1 or round number 2. But I think Ryan Liley will win round number 3 in this fight, lose round 1 and round number 2. And I got Weber Almeida by a decision in this fight. I mean, he's a much better striker. He throws a little bit more pop in his shot, has a little bit more power than Ryan Liley. He's faster than Ryan Liley, and he has the movement and speed advantage over Ryan Liley. But don't be surprised if Ryan survives to a decision and possibly even goes out there and rocks Weber Almeida a few times in this fight, and maybe even gets a round of his own that he wins in this fight. So I think it's going to be a very close fight here in the featherweight division of Bellator, but I got Weber Almeida by a decision. If you look at the betting odds for the fight, if I can find them, the man Weber Almeida is like a 3 or 4 to 1 favorite over Ryan Liley. Best you're going to get him is at minus 220. The over-unders, over 1.5 is at minus 165. Under 1.5 is going to be at plus 135. If we go over here to fight odds as well, it shows you a few more odds that a lot of the other bookies do not have. But if you look at Weber Almeida by a decision odds, which is my exact prediction, it is at plus 230 right there for Weber Almeida by a decision. I do think that bet will have a little bit of value because I think the fight goes all the way. Even though Liley has been knocked out a lot, he can mix in some takedowns and even rock Weber Almeida as well on the feet. Very competitive fight, 29-28 decision. The only thing I do, probably a plus 230 on Weber Almeida by a decision. Bobby Seronio III and Miguel Peimbert, if I'm saying that one correctly, in the bantamweight division. Miguel, I don't even know how old he is. It doesn't show on Tapology. Doesn't show his weight. Doesn't show his height. He's only had 3 fights, all in the last year. 1 as a professional MMA fighter, coming off a loss recently. He's pretty okay. I mean, he does go out there with a good ability of fending off the strikes and good striking defense and things like that, but he really doesn't have any chance against Bobby Seronio III unless he goes out there and lands something clean right on the chin of Bobby Seronio and knocks him out. That's really the only way I could see Miguel Peimbert winning, or if Bobby gasses out going for a finish, maybe Miguel could go out there and get a submission win or a TKO late, but this is a confident pick on the card. When we do our confident picks video later on, Bobby Seronio is going to be pretty high on that list. Undefeated as an amateur, undefeated as a pro, and I got Bobby Seronio winning this fight by a unanimous decision. Out striking Miguel Peimbert and out wrestling him. He's got a good karate background, a very solid boxing, solid kicking game as well, and will mix in the takedowns, control the fight on the ground, and win a good decision. Now, for the betting odds on this fight, Bobby Seronio is at minus 600, so there is not the most value on a parlay there. It would be maybe one of those, like, one of those risky parlays where you put like 10 to 15 people in it or something like that. A big plus money parlay, you might want to add Bobby Seronio to that, but I do think there's a little bit of value on the props. As in on bet online right here, the over 2.5 rounds is at plus 125 right there. If you go over to fight odds right here, if I can find Bobby Seronio, he is currently at, if we can find the prop odds for this fight, I'm not too sure why they're not shown. Might have to refresh the screen really quick. Alright, so Bobby Seronio prop odds. We have, if fight goes to a decision, is at minus 145 on Sportsbet, as well as 5 dimes right there. So they're actually having it minus money as the favorite for this fight to go to a decision. Whereas on BetOnline, you have plus money for it to go to a decision. So if you're on BetOnline, that over 2.5 definitely does have some value, because Seronio by decision is minus 110 right there on these two bookies. So, I mean, some bookies have it, some bad odds for Seronio by decision, fight goes to a decision. But if you're on BetOnline as of right now, that plus 125 on the over 2.5 has a lot of value. That's about it. And maybe a parlay piece as well. Sumiko, Inaba, and Nadine Mandiau in the women's flyweight division. One of my most confident picks of the card is Sumiko Inaba, 4-0 undefeated. Undefeated as a pro and almost undefeated as an amateur with only one very close loss. And she already beats Nadine Mandiau. If you watch this fight back here, got a knockout win in 1 minute and 5 seconds of round number 1 for the amateur strawweight belt. They have since moved up a weight class, and Sumiko is going to be doing the exact same thing. Her betting odds as of right now, best you're going to get them is at minus 714 right there. And for right on fight odds right here, if we can find it, because I usually hide it a little bit, the best you're going to get her is going to be at minus 800. So not the most value if you're just playing her on the money line, but there is some decent value on a possible parlay for Sumiko Inaba if you're going to add her with a lot of the other bigger favorites to get some plus money. And if you look at the prop odds for Sumiko Inaba and Nadine Mandiau, only thing I do here would probably be Inaba inside the distance, but it's at minus 160. I'm assuming we'll probably get some better odds than that eventually when the odds do come out for the rest of the bookies. So if you can get anything minus 120, minus 130, maybe even a plus money for her to win the fight inside the distance, definitely has some value in my opinion. Lance Gibson Jr., who is undefeated, taking on Dominic Clark on short notice. Originally, we weren't supposed to have this. We were supposed to have Chris Avila versus Lance Gibson Jr., and either way, it would have been an easy win for Lance Gibson. Chris Avila is a friend of Nate Diaz. He would have gone out there and got easily KO'd, TKO'd, submitted, whatever the case may be, in my opinion. And I think the same thing will happen here. Lance Gibson Jr., Dominic Clark. Dominic is 37 years old. He's not as tall as Lance Gibson Jr. He's not as lengthy as Lance Gibson Jr. He's not as good of a striker, as good of a wrestler. Lance is honestly better wherever I'm looking at this fight. And minus 500 doesn't look like the best line for most people, but I'm going to say it right now. That's parlay piece material for Lance Gibson Jr. there inside of Bellator, and I got him winning that one. I'm going to go submission late. I think he's going to outbox Dominic Clark on the feet, take the fight down, get the back of Dominic Clark, maybe a little bit of ground and pound, and cinch in a rear naked choke submission. Came off a TKO win and a few decision wins inside of Bellator. But I do think this one, I have a feeling it's going to be a rear naked like Arthur Estrazulas was able to do in that fight, but should be an interesting one. Prop odds for this one, it keeps editing my fight odds page for some reason, but the prop odds for Lance Gibson Jr. in this fight, Gibson Jr. inside the distance, obviously that's going to have a little bit of value at minus 105 for Lance Gibson Jr. to win inside the distance on right here. Let's see if I can find it. The over 1.5 is at minus 135. I don't want to do anything with that. I'd rather just go over here and do Gibson inside the distance at minus 105. That's probably the best thing that you're going to get there. There's no KO props, no submission props just yet. We'll have to wait for those ones, but inside the distance isn't too bad for Gibson Jr. JJ Wilson and Vladimir Tokov In the lightweight division, my prediction for this one is going to be J.J. Wilson to win the fight by a decision. He's going to be a little bit taller, a little bit lengthier than Vladimir Tokov. Better boxing, good shots down the middle, good 1-2s, spinning attacks as we saw in the Pedro Carvalho fight. His wrestling and grappling also isn't too bad. And for me, Vladimir Tokov is going to have to go out to try to mix in some semblance of wrestling and grappling. Because if this is 3 rounds of striking, I'm going to say J.J. Wilson is going to outstrike Vladimir Tokov for 3 straight rounds. That is going to be the prediction. I don't think this one's going to be too much of a wrestling and grappling match. J.J. Wilson should be able to outstrike Vladimir Tokov on the feet and win by a decision. Betting odds for the fight, if I can find them, they always hide them a little bit, but right here, J.J. Wilson at minus 105 on the betting odds from minus 170. That money line does have a little bit of value. I'm just curious to see if the odds are going to go towards JJ being an underdog or they're going to go towards him being the favorite, because the odds, some of them have him as the favorite, some have him as the underdog, but minus 105 and any plus money is definitely value for JJ Wilson. Over-unders, I don't really want to do any of that, but if there is going to be a decision prop for either guy, I would like to see what the odds are going to be. And if we go over here on fight odds, the fight for Tokov to win by decision plus 170 and Wilson by a decision is at plus 240. I definitely do like the value on J.J. Wilson by decision. That one could be a good bet for this fight. Keoni Diggs and Ricardo Seixas in the lightweight division. Ricardo Seixas is younger than Keoni Diggs, but he's worse than Keoni Diggs in every facet of the game. I mean, his chin is absolute dog. I can't say it on YouTube, but he's got knocked out in his first 2 fights over there inside of the LFA. Got knocked out in his second fight inside of Bellator with a Superman punch by Mandiau. Now he's fighting Keoni Diggs, who doesn't really have the most power in his hands, but I do believe will have the boxing advantage. And with how bad Ricardo Seixas' chin is, I think Keoni Diggs will go out there, rock him on the feet, and Ricardo's going to be trying to recover, trying to survive, and Keoni will take the fight down and submit Ricardo Seixas. He's never been submitted because he just keeps on getting dropped on the feet with his striking, but I do believe Keoni will hurt him on the feet, lay in a little bit of ground and pound, and open something up for a submission win. Another rear naked like the Scotty Howe and Derek Campos wins, and I got Keoni Diggs by a submission. If we look at the betting odds for this one here in the lightweight division, right now Keoni Diggs is at minus 350 on the betting odds. The over 2.5 is plus money at plus 103. Only thing I would kind of think about maybe doing would be a submission prop on Keoni Diggs, as I'm assuming the inside the distance is plus money for sure, plus 120. Has value, I guess, but if the plus money is going to be at plus 120 right there, I would rather go for an even bigger plus money on a submission, because I know everyone and their mama is probably going to look at Ricardo Seixas' record of a lot of knockout losses. They're going to say, all right, well, I got Diggs by knockout, and they're going to start hammering the Diggs by KO TKO prop. I think the submission prop will have value, but we don't have that just yet, so I guess we have to wait. Khadzhimurat Bestaev and Khalid Murtazaliev. In the middleweight division, I'm going to go Khalid Murtazaliev to win by knockout in round 1 or round number 2. He's not as tall, he's not as lengthy, he's not as big as Khadzhimurat Vantagula, but we see a lot of very tall, very lengthy guys really just keeping their head up and things like that, just not really having the best head movement. And if you're able to close that distance, throw something big inside of that humongous guard of theirs, way up there, and you're able to crack one of these big guys, you're usually able to knock him out. Think of some other big guys, kind of like Khadzhimurat Bestaev, who's been knocked out in both of his recent MMA losses. Think of Steven Struve, the UFC fighter. Khalid Murtazaliev, Khadzhimurat Bestaev should be a little bit of a technical striking fight for a bit. Khadzhimurat will try to mix in some takedowns, but he's not going to take down and control a guy like Khalid Murtazaliev in this fight, and I do believe Khalid Murtazaliev will get Khadzhimurat Bestaev back to the cage, just start throwing left hook, left hook, overhands, throwing some bombs in the clinch, and I got him winning this one by KO or TKO. Now for the betting odds, Khalid Murtazaliev, I don't know if there's value on the money line. It's minus 330 as of right now. Minus 310 is the best you're going to get him at on the betting odds. Over 2.5 rounds is minus 135, which does make me think a little bit, because the bookies are saying that Khalid Murtazaliev is going to win the fight by a decision as the most likely outcome for this fight. And that is a possibility. Murtazaliev by decision is at plus 200, but I'm going to rather say under 2.5 rounds. Right there on BetOnline, you're going to get plus 105 for him to win for the fight just to be under 2.5 rounds. Fight to not go to a decision is minus 170. A huge swing from plus 105 to minus 170 right there. And I think Khalid Murtazaliev should have some success and get the finish. And yeah, you might want to cover a little bit because there's a possibility Khalid could go out there and get a submission on the ground or something like that. So yeah, right there under 2.5 plus 105. It's probably the most valuable bet you're gonna get with Bestaev and Murtazaliev. Richard Palencia and CJ Hamilton in the bantamweight division prediction. I'm going to go Richard Palencia to win. He's 10-0 undefeated, beating Alan Bagoso, who's about to fight on, you guessed it, Dana White's Contender Series, or am I remembering the right guy? I thought it was Alan Bagoso that just recently had a fight on Dana White's Contender Series. Yes, he did. He fought Farid Basharat, and guess what? Richard Palencia beats Alan Bagoso, who is a UFC level guy. He beat Kevin Worth by decision. 5 decision wins in a row, leading me to believe, well, this fight is probably going to go to a decision with CJ Hamilton, who did lose by finish earlier on in his career to Jimmy Flick with an arm triangle choke, Mamedov with a rear naked choke, and Mateus Matos by a knockout right there. But in a lot of those fights, he showed good poise, was able to weather the storm for the most part until he didn't, obviously. But I do believe with the lack of finishing ability from Richard Palencia and the fact that CJ's a pretty tough guy, I do believe Richard Palencia will outbox him on the feet, mix in these takedowns in this fight, a little bit of control time, a little bit of ground and pound, possible submission attempts, and I think Richard Palencia gets to 11-0 as a professional MMA fighter and wins by a decision. Betting odds for this one here should be interesting. I'm assuming the goes to a decision to be pretty interesting for this fight. Right now, minus 270 for Richard Palencia. I don't want anything to do with it, in my opinion. Over 2.5 is at minus 205. If we look onto fight odds, or best fight odds right here, whatever you want to call it, and we find CJ Hamilton's betting odds, the odds for the fight to go to a decision between CJ Hamilton and Richard Palencia are minus 170. It's not something I want to do. I'm going to be dead honest. I don't want to bet anything like that. CJ's been finishing all 3 of his fights inside of Bellator. Just not worth it in my opinion for this one. It's a pass for me on everything betting wise. I don't want to do a Palencia decision, even though that's plus money and that is my prediction. There's a possibility he gets the finish, so it's an interesting one. It's a pass on the betting odds for me. Max Rohskopf and Mike Hamel in the lightweight division, 50-50 fight on the betting odds. Height and reach advantage are going to be going Max Rohskopf fairly heavily in this fight. I think Max Rohskopf will win round number 1. He'll outstrike Mike Hamel a little bit there. I mean, not necessarily outstrike, but keep it even on the feet. Mix in some takedowns in round number 1. He'll do very good. He'll be like, oh my gosh, Max Rohskopf is doing absolutely amazing with his wrestling and with his grappling. And then he's going to gas out a little bit. If anyone remembers this fight on Dana White's Contender Series, yes, it was 2 years ago. but his cardio really just did not look that good, and he doesn't put enough volume and pressure onto his opponents. Jordan Bailey, Jeff Creighton, if they were Mike Hamel and he was doing what he was doing in those fights, Max Rohskopf would have gassed out in both of those fights. So I think Max wins round number 1. Mike Hamel wins round number 2 and round number 3 due to Max Rohskopf gassing out a little bit later on in this fight. And I think Mike Hamel goes out there, mixes in these takedowns later on in the fight, tries to go for the finish, starts ground and pounding the heck out of Max Rohskopf, looking for the TKO, but I don't think he's going to get it. It's going to be hard for me to say Max is going to get TKO twice in his professional MMA career. I think he survives, but I think Mike Hamel wins 2 out of 3 rounds and gets his 3rd decision win in a row inside of Bellator. If we look at the betting odds for this fight, plus 100 for Mike Hamel, that has value. Good odds on Mike Hamel, that's the only thing I do in terms of the money line for Mike Hamel and Max Rohskopf. Over 2.5, under 2.5. I don't want to do anything there because I could see possibly a 2nd or 3rd round finish from Mike Hamel. So over 2.5 at minus 160. No, there's no value in that in my opinion. Fight goes to a decision at minus 155. Yeah, no, there's no value in that either in my opinion. But the thing that I do believe is going to have value here between these two fighters in the UFC's lightweight, in the Bellator's lightweight division, is going to be Mike Hamel by decision at plus 210. Double your money. He's the underdog. I think he wins the decision. So either plus 210 on a decision has value, or the money line at plus 100 for Mike Hamel. Islam Mamedov and Nick Browne in the lightweight division. Nick Browne, 32 years old, a lot of finishes, but only 1 loss coming by a decision. And his amateur loss came by, guess what, a decision. 6 submission wins, 3 knockouts, and then 4 decisions right there. Fighting Islam Mamedov, a fighter out of Eagles MMA with Khabib Nurmagomedov, only losing to Benson Henderson in a robbery of a fight. He should have won that fight, and he beat Brent Primus before that as well. I think he goes out there, does exactly what we're expecting him to do, controls Nick Browne on the ground, lands some little tip-tappity shots onto Nick Browne, doesn't really go for the finish. He might get the back of Nick Browne every now in this fight, but it's exactly what you expect from an Islam Mamedov fight. I think he's going to get another decision win inside of the Bellator lightweight division. If you look at the betting odds for this one, if I can find them, they always move them around for some reason. Islam is at minus 222 on Bet365 right there. You can get minus 245, minus 225 on Betway, which is some pretty decent value in my opinion for Islam Mamedov. If you're on DraftKings and they allow it, maybe a submission or decision prop for Islam Mamedov would have value. Over 2.5, nah, I really don't want to do anything with that. But the bet you all know I was going to say is, of course, Islam Mamedov to win the fight by a decision. I mean, what other bet is there really to make in an Islam Mamedov fight besides, well, Islam Mamedov to win the fight by a decision? And right here, if we're looking at it, Mamedov by a decision is plus 180. Plus 180 for Mamedov to win by decision. That is the bet to make, or put that minus 225 on Betway into a parlay. Anything around 245, 230, 220. I think that's parlay level. You can probably put them with maybe a Bobby Seronio, Lance Gibson Jr., someone like that to get it to plus money. But yeah, it's either the money line in a parlay with a few big favorites on this card, or the decision prop for Islam Mamedov. Juan Archuleta and Enrique Barzola in the bantamweight division. I'm going to say decision. I'm fairly confident in this fight going to a decision. Enrique had like 3 or 4 decision wins inside of Bellator in a row and inside the UFC in a row. Only getting 1 finish over Darian Caldwell, which is a little bit premature of a stoppage from the referee in that fight. Juan Archuleta did lose to Rafael Stones by knockout, did lose to Sergio Pettis by a decision, but again, that 1 knockout loss to Rafael Stones is not going to discourage me from thinking this fight's going to go to a decision. But if you remember that Juan Archuleta half-field thoughts fight, Juan Archuleta was easily outstriking Enrique Barzola, landing a lot more volume, landing some of the harder shots, and he was on his way to winning a very good decision. Just got caught later on in that fight. So Enrique versus Juan should be 3 rounds of striking. Might be a few takedown attempts mixed in there, but no really control or submission attempts. 3 rounds of strike, and I think Juan hits a little bit more. Throws a little bit more volume than Enrique Barzola, and he's a slightly faster puncher. Not to mention, I do believe he's going to have that experience advantage as well, fighting guys like Sergio Pettis, Patchy Mix, Henry Corrales, half-field thoughts. Wrestling should be not the biggest factor, but I think Juan wins it by a decision. Betting odds are going to have it as a 50-50. Juan Archuleta as the underdog at plus 100. I think that definitely is going to be having some value for this Bellator 286 card. To get plus money on Juan Archuleta, I think that definitely does have some value. I think that's my 3rd underdog of the card. For Juan Archuleta, we had Juan Archuleta. We had JJ Wilson, who's a slight underdog, and I believe Mike Hamel as well, who is at plus 100. So that is our 3rd underdog of the night. This one, Juan Archuleta, I think that one definitely is going to have some value. He started as a slight favorite. Enrique started as a slight favorite, went to an underdog and is back to a favorite. So that's interesting, but I think the only bet really to make here would be that money line bet onto Juan Archuleta. If you do believe that he's going to win the fight, you get plus money. I definitely do think that is worth it. If you're not willing to do, if you're not able to do or willing to do a money line bet on Juan Archuleta, I like the decision. I like minus 230 on this fight. Goes to a decision. You can parlay that one with a few other fighters on this card. Go up to the parlay tab right here. Let's just say, for example, over 2.5 or goes to a decision. I'm feeling very, very good about that. Then you put maybe a Bobby Seronio in there. You put a Sumiko Inaba, Lance Gibson Jr. as well. And you get plus 118 for a 4-person parlay right there, including the fight goes to a decision as well. So fight goes to a decision in a parlay piece. Get it down to plus money. I think that one does have some value. Aaron Pico and Jeremy Kennedy in the featherweight division. Y'all know what I'm going to say. Aaron Pico by KO TKO. Round number 1, round number 2. He is younger. He's not as tall, not as lengthy. He's a lot more powerful. He's the better wrestler. He is the better grappler. He's more athletic. He's the better jiu-jitsu guy. I mean, come on, guys. Jeremy Kennedy, yeah, he got a good win over Manuel Sanchez. Got a decent win over Luis Rafael Loriento, Matt Bassett right there. But he lost to Adam Borics pretty dominantly in that one. I think Aaron Pico will land some takedowns here if he wants to, or if he wants to strike, he can do that as well. And I think he's going to catch Jeremy with something big. Call out Patricio Pitbull in the post-fight interview. Get that call out to work and fight Patricio Pitbull in 2023. Aaron Pico by KO TKO. If we're looking at the betting odds, possible parlay piece, minus 550 on Betway is the best odds you're going to get him at right there. Parlay piece is all I would really say for that one. Over-under is very, very interesting because the over 2.5 is minus 105 right there. If we go over to fightodds.io and we see some of the other bookies having it and going to a decision or whatever the case may be, fight goes to a decision is at plus 105. Pico inside the distance is plus 105. So maybe a Pico inside the distance would have some value, but I'm going to be dead honest with you. I don't want to do anything with a Pico inside the distance for barely plus money. I'd rather go out there and do a bet online special of inside the distance decision, no action. If y'all don't know what that one is, if Aaron Pico gets the finish, you win the bet. If Jeremy Kennedy gets the finish, you lose the bet. If the fight goes to a decision, the bet is voided and nothing happens to your bet. You just get your money refunded. That's the only thing. Would be a parlay piece for Aaron Pico there, or an inside the distance decision, no action bets for Aaron Pico. And maybe if there's a KO prop for plus 200, might want to consider doing that one as well. AJ McKee Jr. and Spike Carlil. In the lightweight division, I'm going to go AJ McKee Jr. by submission in round number 2, round number 3. He is taller, he is lengthier, he is younger, he is more experienced, he's the better striker. Technically, he is the better jiu-jitsu guy, better submission skills. But Spike is live. Spike is very, very live. Has good finishing ability, getting a submission win in Ryzen over Koji Takeda with a guillotine, Dan Moret with a rear naked, JJ Ambrose with a right hook knockout, Gil Guardardo with an armbar submission win, and Batsumbero Dagvadorj with a rear naked choke submission. I mean, he's a former UFC fighter and has since gone 5-0 since leaving the UFC after he beat Elon Cruz and lost to Bill Algeo and Billy Corantillo. He's doing amazing, so if he can go out there and get a finish, I would be not really that surprised because the dude is a finisher, but I think he's going to be pressuring forward on AJ McKee. He might go for a takedown, and AJ will catch him with a guillotine later on in round 2 or round number 3. Betting odds-wise for this fight, money line, no, we're not doing any money line straight bets on AJ McKee. I'm not advising a parlay for AJ McKee either, but I do have AJ McKee winning this fight inside the distance. But I don't know. I don't know if there's enough value on AJ McKee inside the distance to kind of show that it's a valuable bet on AJ McKee to win by finish, AJ McKee to win by submission, by TKO, whatever the case may be, because fight goes to a decision is plus 180. AJ McKee Jr. by finish is at minus 135. So I'm contemplating doing that minus 135. That'd be about it, because there's no parlay in a minus 420. Haha, funny. AJ McKee in this fight, the only thing you're going to do is minus 135 on the inside the distance, but I think Spike could survive for the decision right there. So I'm going to say, let's pass. Let's just pass on this fight between AJ McKee and Spike Carlil with the betting odds. Patricio Pitbull and Adam Borics in the featherweight division. I can't wait. I cannot freaking wait. What a banger in the Bellator's featherweight division. I got Patricio Pitbull winning this fight by a KO. I'm just kidding. I got him by decision. I don't think he's going to finish Adam Borics. He did get rear nakeded by Darrion Caldwell, but since has shown his takedown defense has improved a lot ever since that loss to Darrion Caldwell, but not enough to defend all of the takedowns from Patricio Pitbull. Patricio knows that the height and reach advantage lies with Adam Borics, who will close that distance, land some big shots in the feet. Adam will start to stay at range, try to pick Patricio Pitbull apart on the outside and possibly try to knock out Patricio Pitbull. But Patricio will be able to close that distance, land some good shot of his own, and keep the striking very, very even. But that one thing, that one key factor with Patricio Pitbull and Adam Borics is going to be wrestling and grappling. Darrion Caldwell got the back submitted, and Mike Hamel mixed in some takedowns in that fight. And yes, Adam was able to defend against Mads Burnell and Jeremy Kennedy in his most recent fights. But I do think Patricio will be able to land the harder shots on the feet and mix in the takedowns. So even if it's a super close striking fight, the judges will see, oh, Patricio landed a takedown there. We're going to give him the round. So I got Patricio Pitbull winning this fight by a 48-47 decision. I think Adam will win a few of these rounds when they're a little bit sweaty later on in this fight, and when he's able to defend the takedowns a bit better and land some good shots on the feet. But 3-2 for Patricio Pitbull to win by a decision. Betting odds for this fight, minus 140 on Patricio Freire, however you want to say it right there. I'm going to say wait. There's a lot of money coming in on Adam Borics. Started at minus 260 on the money line and immediately popped up to minus 180 and slowly but surely has moved himself all the way up to minus 141. I do believe there will be some money pouring in on Adam Borics to get this close to a pick'em. So I'd wait a little bit if you're doing the money line on Patricio Freire, however you want to say it. But the only thing I would do would be Freire, however you say it, by a decision at plus 225 plus, sorry about that, did I get it wrong? Frere 250 on the betting odds, plus 250 for Patricio Pitbull to win the main event by a decision. Money line, I say wait for it a little bit, but the prop odds on plus 250 for Frere to win the fight by decision on Bet Online is very solid in my opinion. So that is the betting breakdown, the predictions, and the money lines and things like that for UFC 286 Pitbull versus Borics. Make sure to like this video, go down and subscribe to the channel, turn on the post notifications. I got Patricio Pitbull winning the main event by a decision, AJ McKee by a submission, round 2 or round number 3, Aaron Pico KO, round 1 or round 2, Juan Archuleta by a decision, Islam Mamedov to win that one by decision, Mike Hamel to win by decision. That's already 2 underdogs in the card, Mike Hamel and Juan Archuleta. Richard Palencia decision, Khalid Murtazaliev by KO. Keoni Diggs by a submission, JJ Wilson by decision, Lance Gibson Jr. by a rear naked choke submission, Sumiko Inaba by KO. Bobby Seronio by decision, and Weber Almeida by a decision. Those are the predictions, the breakdowns, and everything like that for Bellator 286. Like, subscribe, comment down below. We'll see you in the next one.